Hello indie game fans, it's the week of Halloween, so be sure to have fun when trick-or-treating or with parties, but if you prefer a more quiet night in, here are the new releases of the week, with surprisingly not that many scary games coming out, so let's begin with Karate Survivor, a Vampire Survivors inspired action roguelike title, but with a twist, since your attacks are largely melee based with punches and kicks, with the occasional plate or bottle which can be thrown at enemies, which gives it a different feel. It does seem like a tribute to Jackie Chan and the action movies of the 80s, and is a different enough take on the popular subgenre to be of interest, with its demo being very well received. I just talked about Slayaway Camp in my video on the best games for Halloween, and surprise surprise, the sequel to the game from 2016 is launching this week. You play as a slasher movie villain Skullface, who is trapped in a streaming service, now being able to bring his brand of comedic violence to legally distinct movie parodies like Piranhas on a Plane or Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Great White Shark, having to eliminate unsuspecting victims in a variety of ways. In addition to the ice sliding style of puzzles of the original, there are single step puzzles as well, which seems minor but does expand the possibilities, and I do love their tagline, since this game puts the laughter in slaughter and is perfect for the season. Speaking of Vampire Survivors, we have a number of cheeky references to it, such as the roguelite first-person shooter Vampire Hunters, which releases out of early access this week. It's a ridiculous first-person shooter that spams enemies at you, but equally allows you to absolutely stuff your screen full of guns of all shapes and sizes, upgrading them to become ridiculously powerful and has various playable characters as well. If you picked this up during early access and thought that it lacked content then, I believe you will be pleasantly surprised since the developers have been adding to it with the roguelite loop of permanent progression in between runs that will keep you playing for just one more run. So for a different take on this style of game, do check it out. Love indie games? Sign up to my newsletter to get a weekly dose of what's hot, along with some news and of course, weekly game giveaways, so if interested, link is in the description below.
If you control the time, you control the universe. Beyond the event horizon, destiny is reshaped.
Another curious title makes it to launch in Moon Mystery, where the premise is, get this, the moon is haunted, so as an astronaut who loses contact with Earth, your adventure begins as you go about uncovering this mystery. This is a pretty sick looking first-person shooter that has you going on an interstellar adventure across the stars, exploring various alien worlds and biomes, and of course, shooting at enemies there in order to get through. I don't think this is a Starfield-like RPG experience, but rather more of an adventure FPS with a story to tell, and it might be more guided, but still, it looks ambitious and might be cool. Alright, another long in development title makes it to launch in NIMRODS Guncraft Survivor, a title that you might think is just another Vampire Survivors clone, and while the core concept is similar, the ability to craft your own guns makes it of interest. This was delayed out of September into October, so I hope that the extra time allowed them to polish up the game just enough for their early access release. One interesting aspect is the guns that you built in previous runs do not simply disappear, but are given to drones that will then help you in your next run, so you can see where this is going in terms of combos and how ridiculously overpowered you can get. Upgrades are not just limited to shooting more projectiles more quickly, but includes some that might just break the laws of physics and common sense, with permanent progression in the form of DNA modifications to improve future clones of yourself, as well as upgrades to the aforementioned drones. So, like most games in this genre, it will be an exercise in power scaling, so let's see if they manage to get the balance just right. It's a pretty decent week of new games with 30 releases of interest, so other games begins with Albatroz, the self-styled backpacking adventure RPG that does seem to be all art style, about planning your trip and exploring the world, with the grander goal of finding your lost sibling. While there are RPG elements like upgrading your car and unlocking skills for the character, for the most part, it is a walking sim that kind of looks like Death Stranding, where the point of the game is to walk, climb, run, and platform your way around. It does look very pretty as well, and has resource management, and even a monster that the trailer briefly shows, although I don't believe there is combat in this game, and falls on the cozy side of things. A sleek-looking pixel art precision platformer is Ascending Inferno, in which you play as a recently deceased soccer player having to get out of hell, but you are kicking your sibling's soul up and out of hell as well, which conveniently takes the form of a ball. Soccer platformer wasn't on my bingo card for the year, so this looks challenging in that rage game kind of way, especially since balls are round, and I'm guessing you'll easily roll off small platforms that you just spent the last 20 minutes trying to get up to, although the writing seems a little cringe with the random vulgarities. I last talked about Bad to Bad Apocalypse during the Nyx Festival, where its demo was well received, in which this is a survival sandbox shooter starring anthropomorphic animals in some sort of zombie apocalypse. Of course, there is a survival sandbox aspect of gathering resources, growing crops, fishing and more, which then leads to crafting and upgrading of equipment, but of the more military fashion, and then you control a squad of units as you open fire on the enemy. Apparently, this was previously on mobile, with this being a premium version to be launched on Steam, with, I believe, no microtransactions, so hopefully they got the balance just right since it does look pretty good. Now here's a title that I'm a bit unsure about since Bioweaver self-describes as an RPG game with the main content of treasure hunting and character building, which doesn't tell me much when my previous exposure to this developer was their other title, Bioprototype, which was a Vampire Survivors style roguelite, so from that, I'm inferring that this is not a roguelite, but rather a more linear action-adventure title that does still feature swarms of enemies, but I'm guessing handcrafted levels rather than procedurally generated. There's a simple programming logic system to build links between your organs to grant you different abilities and can be debugged if you run into issues, so it might be a little bit more cerebral than usual, but still might be worth checking out. We don't have any gameplay trailer for Blasphemous 2 Mea Culpa as of recording, but this is a paid DLC which adds the Mea Culpa sword from Blasphemous 1 back into the game, along with a new quest, 2 large new zones, 2 bosses, an alternate ending and more, with this launching alongside the free True Torment update, which adds New Game Plus, and both are out on Halloween, making it the perfect time to return to Custodia. Hey! Did you know that more Bloons are coming? Not quite in the same way as their tower defense games, since Bloons Card Storm looks like a PvP deck builder instead. Not exactly a roguelite, but you can see some similarities with Slay the Spire in their energy system, where you need to play both Monkey and Bloons cards for defense and offense respectively, but do note that this will have in-app purchases and is not so indie as well, since New Zealand developer Ninja Kiwi was acquired by Swedish listed company Modern Times Group in 2021. Another title from the most recent Steam Nyx Festival is ColdRidge, a hex grid-based roguelite strategy title about exploring the frontier, which has been likened to the first few turns of a Civilization campaign as you explore the map. You are taking on various contracts, searching for resource deposits for the guild, having to most effectively navigate your way across the terrain in order to be successful. It also doesn't have combat in the traditional sense, since it is more about survival and exploration, making it a different enough roguelite to be of interest, and has a cool look and theme as well. Another 1.0 release of interest is Devilated, an ultra-violent, old-school first-person shooter with RPG mechanics, where the gimmick is that you have to eat the faces of your demonic adversaries before they eat yours. This has been in early access for more than 3 years and isn't the most popular, so maybe the 1.0 launch will fix that, since the action does look to be on point with a bunch of variety. There are 100 plus weapons, abilities like bullet time and dual wielding, 30 huge levels with 30 bosses, and even an almost Diablo-like inventory system with loot, so it's about blasting away at enemies, picking up weapons, and then testing these out as you advance further. There is a score or style meter as you try to get the S rank, looking to be all action all the time. Here's a curiosity named 动物 Odyssey, literally translated to Animal Odyssey, one that comes to us from a Chinese developer that looks like a 4v4 party-based RPG in the vein of something like Darkest Dungeon, which you can clearly see from the art and animation. Combat is based on position as well as cards, so actually, this is more like Banners of Ruin down to the anthropomorphic animals as you fight your way through to claim the throne. Apparently, this will be free to play, and they have not declared in-app purchases on Steam, so I don't know how they're planning to monetize, which is the biggest question about this game for me. Ever since the success of Lethal Company, we have seen an uptick in 4-player co-op horror titles, the latest of which is Egg Raiders, one that has a lo-fi look in which you and your crew are exploring an area filled with monsters, having to gather loot, escape, and survive over 3 days. The game will be free on the day of release, October 31st, 2024, so bookmark it and add it to your library when available, with it following the blueprint of Content Warning, so let's see if they will find any success. I've also recently talked about Frameland, a binary tale, and for the record, Phantom Thief 11, I don't hate the game, since if I did, I wouldn't even have bothered to cover it. The thing was, I said that this is a pixel art JRPG that looks nice, but whose main gimmick appears to be the whole active turn-based combat system, where you need to time your button presses at the right time for maximum impact. A feature that has been in games like the Mario and Luigi RPG series, as well as Bug Fables, so it isn't doing anything new in that department, which was my entire point. Still, I do like JRPGs and pixel art, so of course it is of interest to me, so hopefully they will manage to find their audience as well. A title that is not usually my thing, but I guess is a great time for release would be Henna, a 3D puzzle platformer about a little girl whose doll goes missing and now has to traverse her nightmares in order to find out what went wrong. Of course, you can see flashes of little nightmares in this, but perhaps not as disturbing due to the monster designs, but still an oppressive, moody world that is perfect for this week. Another interesting release is Haven and Hearth, a free-to-play MMORPG that seems kind of insane to me, since MMOs are notoriously difficult to build and maintain, let alone by an indie team, where this is a little bit more advanced than the simple pixel art or text-based MMOs that would be more realistic for a small team. In fact, this kind of reminds me of RuneScape, since you have side activities to do like crafting, foraging, hunting, fishing, poetry, and even landscaping, in addition to combat, with plenty of progression systems as well as permadeath and open PvP, looking kind of ruthless for a game like this, and while I don't have the time to commit to an MMO, if you're in the mood, this might be worth checking out. Another neat looking title that has potential as well is Keepkeepers, a tower defense game combined with a base builder, in which you are defending your base from monsters in both lanes as well as open areas, but need to have the economy to back it up. As such, it is one part automation optimization title like Automa Chef, plus tower defense, which is always fun, with I believe a roguelite element in randomization if your base falls, also having co-op support, and looks like fun with friends. Another curiosity of the week is Monospaced Lovers, a side-scrolling exploration platformer with bullet hell inspired combat that I have seen described as a Metroidvania, so of course I'm at least curious about this. Impressively, this has a script of over 100,000 words, so it's an oddly narrative experience for a game like this, taking some cues from visual novels, and has an emotional tale to tell about finding out the truth about your fragile world before it disintegrates. As such, it does occupy a weird spot that is not exactly for either visual novel or Metroidvania fans, so I don't know if this will manage to find a mainstream audience, but if you're interested in something cool and weird, do give this a look. Just a quick one here in Souno's Curse, a hand-drawn Metroidvania that does look Hollow Knight inspired, that has you delving into a cursed cave, having a touching story about regrets and living in the moment, so YOLO the game, and could be neat. No trailer for Stacklands 2000, so I'll be brief, but this is a paid expansion to a wildly successful card-based management sim, adding the industrial revolution to the game, where things like pollution, sewage, roads, energy, and more become a concern. With over 180 new cards, 8 new packs, 50 plus new quests, and 3 to 5 hours of gameplay, making this even better.
We have seen cities rise and crumble to ashes.
I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Tlatoani Aztec cities is essentially Pharaoh but Aztec instead of Egyptian, which seems like a no-brainer in hindsight, being a city building title but with a different theme. You need to ensure that your people have enough resources to grow and thrive while they build out your empire, with an emphasis on symmetry in the building, which is a new mechanic to me. And given that it's being published by Paradox, the strategy game people, I'm sure that this will be good. Ready for something weird? Tostchu is a first-person horror title about running a toast shop in, get this, Central Anatolia, Turkey, not the first place you would think of for a game like this, in which you are taking orders, preparing food, collecting money to buy more ingredients, but also witnessing strange events unfolding. The throwback PS1 inspired visuals and character models and faces gives an uneasy feeling to the game, but the developer explicitly states no jump scares, so it's a different kind of horror game, and is the hidden gem of the week. A neat looking beat-em-up title is Vengeance Hunters, having 3 playable characters and 2-player co-op support, and is inspired by the 90s era of beat-em-ups as well as the Neo Geo hardware in particular. The developers don't do a great job in explaining the story setup, but you are fighting cyborgs, zombies, mystery men and more, and looks like a good one of these. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. Surprise! I'm pretty sure that you have not heard of this next title, since Game 6 from developer The Behemoth, best known for Castle Crashers, Battle Block Theatre and Pit People, was randomly announced last week and releases this week. Not the strategy that I would employ, but hey, they are a famous developer after all, so it might work out for them. So if this is new to you, do leave a shocked face emoji in the comments below, in which this is simply titled Behemoth. You play as their mascot, the giant chicken, in this arcade action title about securing your flock of chicks and collecting as much candy corn as possible. Looking to be in parts similar to Flappy Bird, but also Flash games of old, and I'm definitely curious to see how this performs. An awesome looking first-person simulation title is Fruit Bus, a game that is one part road trip simulator and one part management sim, where you drive your fruit bus around, go into the wilderness to gather ingredients, and open up shop and sell food to your customers. It looks super cute and cozy, and I don't think there's anything sinister going on here, but I'm interested in the overall structure since it appears to be fairly open and you are free to explore. There is a greater story about gathering all of your grandmother's friends in one place for a grand feast, but it looks super chill in an almost Slime Rancher kind of way.
Well, if that isn't freedom, then I don't know.
あなたに伝えたい物語がある。
Okay, this is going to be a weird one since technically, of the games on this list, the most hyped and wishlisted title is Elin, a turn-based sandbox roguelike RPG which is the prequel to a mobile game named Ilona, which was tremendously popular, and this had an amazingly successful Kickstarter campaign as well to the tune of over $400,000. This is an open world title with crafting, survival and base building elements in which you play as an adventurer and are free to shape the world how you see fit. It is pixel art, turn-based and grid-based, and seems ridiculously ambitious, but do note that while it looks like an MMO, this is single player only, although I suspect the systems will be fairly deep as well. I'm not sure how the roguelite elements factor into the almost MMO-like design to the world, so what happens if you die in particular intrigues me, but it does look like quite the intriguing prospect. Due to their trailer and website, I'm assuming this is from a Japanese developer, so look out for localization issues, but if I'm right and you're into this kind of game, you could potentially spend hundreds of hours in a game like this, especially since they're talking about a continuously expanding world with updates to be released even after early access. Alright, this next title is pretty hyped as well, whose demo has been well received, in which Sulphur is a first-person shooter but with an action-adventure kind of structure, meaning to say that it is not a roguelite and is not level-based, where you can explore the world and delve into caverns, sewers, castles and more. It has a neat art style, an interesting gun customization system, and inventory and RPG mechanics, having quite the amount of interest, but will be an early access release. In what is probably the biggest Castlevania news in a long time, we finally have the crossover with Vampire Survivors in a paid DLC named Ode to Castlevania, probably adding vampires to the game, having 20 plus new characters from the Belmonts to Alucard and more, along with 40 plus new weapons, which is kind of insane, although to be fair, some of the original Vampire Survivors weapons were inspired by their Castlevania counterparts, along with special weapon selectors, a monstrously large stage with actual level design that is not just an endless arena, 30 plus new music tracks which are remixes of Castlevania tracks, so things really have come full circle, so I wonder what is next for this game. Watch this video for more spooky Halloween goodness.